Hi, and welcome to Philanthropy Impact's Walking My Shoes member series, where we explore topics that are useful to you and your clients as they embark on their purpose-driven wealth strategies and philanthropy. The discussion today is looking at how to bridge the gap between professional advisors and non-profit high-value fundraisers to better meet client and donor need in their, to better meet the needs of client and donors in their donor journey and additionally in their purpose-driven wealth strategy. My name is Sophie Zahanik and I'm the Director of Membership and Development here at Philanthropy Impact and the person to talk to if you'd like to know more about our training and how to make the most of your membership with us. I'll share my email in the chat or at the end of the session for those watching the recording. As always, we will keep this to just 30 minutes. I seem to be having problems speaking today, sorry. We will keep this discussion to just 30 minutes, but it will go quickly and we encourage you to use the chat to introduce yourselves, have your say and pose questions to our panel. Please make sure to select everyone so that everyone can see. Chairing this session today, we welcome John Pepin, our CEO. Sorry, John, I don't know what's gone in. It's because I'm waiting for my daughter to come home, sorry. Joining him, we welcome Sianne Haldane, Philanthropy Advisor and Chief Impact Officer from Maanch, Jessica Maybanks from Philanthropy, who is the Philanthropy and Partnerships Advisor at the Brooke, and Glenn Baker, who's a private client and corporate and charity investment management at Stanley. Thank you all so much for joining today. And again, apologies for my mishaps. I will now pass over to John, who will do a sterling job and make up for it. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Not a problem, Sophia. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Maybe we could start off by just taking a minute to, if you could just describe your backgrounds and who you are, etc. So, Sianne, can we start with you, please?
Sure, thanks, John. I'm Sianne Haldane, Chief Impact Officer at Maanch and Philanthropy Advisor. And a little bit of background on me, why this is an interesting topic for me in particular. I started my career as a lawyer and then moved into a family office environment and then changed tracks quickly to become a high-value fundraiser myself. And I think in that process, I really, sort of learned a lot about, obviously, how a charity works and also knew from the outside, sort of what some of the challenges were potentially for an actual donor and also for those around them trying to facilitate philanthropy. Now at Maanch, as Chief Impact Officer, I work with our clients who are either individuals, corporates, or other types of entities, and I help them with their impact journeys, and that often involves philanthropy.
Thank you very much. Jess.
Hi there. Thank you so much for inviting me along today. It's a real honour to be sat here with you, Sianne and Glenn and John yourself. My name is Jessica Maybanks and I've been with a charity called Brooke since about 2014 as their Philanthropy and Partnerships Advisor. So Brooke is actually an international NGO that supports the welfare of working horses, donkeys and mules in some of the poorest countries around the world. So that's those animals that people rely on when mechanised transportation isn't an option. Perhaps, it's not affordable or available, and they transport everything from people to produce to food and water and are vital livelihood assets for scores of communities. So at Brooke, I tend to work with our major donor supporters and family trusts and foundations, really to support their investment journey at Brooke, providing a sort of Rolls-Royce standard stewardship service for those existing clients, but also to showcase our work to prospective new supporters of the charity. And by working with professional advisors, that's been really valuable in that respect, and also by working alongside Philanthropy Impact and the training sessions that we've had as a charity as well.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Glenn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Glenn Baker and I work at the wealth management business Stanley, and I'm responsible for drawing together professional advisors across a range of disciplines across our client base. And we have 23 UK offices, and our client base is diverse. So it ranges from multi-generational families and the next generation. We look after business owners and entrepreneurs, professionals in sports, music, entertainment, media, as well as family offices and charities and foundations and not-for-profits. And why is this an interesting topic for me? Well, if I were to point to one growing trend across clients and professional and trusted advisors, especially over the last 2 years, it is that of a growing interest in philanthropy in particular. What that looks like for different people, how to go about it, again, different for different circumstances and different situations. So it's a much debated topic, and increasingly so.
Thank you, Glenn. So Philanthropy Impact has taken a strong interest to this whole area because whenever we had groups of high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals in the same room to talk about how we could grow philanthropy, there's at least always one or two or more sometimes who basically said we have been alienated by fundraisers. They treat us as donors, come and get money and stuff, and then after a while we don't hear from them again, and then they come back when they want more money. We really would like to be treated as clients and have our needs met. From an advisor's perspective, quite often there would be issues because many fundraisers would see them. I sound really negative about fundraisers, don't I? I don't really mean to be, because I have done that. Well, maybe that's why I'm negative. Advisors are seen sometimes by fundraisers as a source of clients and people to raise money from, and so there's some issues around that. So we established specialized training programs for high value fundraisers to teach them how to treat their clients as or donors as clients, but also how to become trusted partners with professional advisors. We also have training for advisors to follow up on what Glenn was saying about how to support their clients around their donor journey. So Sianne, starting with you, how can high value major donor fund?
Oops, sorry.
Was I that bad?
Yeah, jumping off. Sorry about
I guess I should turn off my phone, shouldn't I?
that.
Okay, it's off.
Sorry,
Okay, well, that's good. Anyway, Sianne, let's start all over again.
yes.
How can major donor high value fundraisers and professional advisors work together? And could you share some of your experiences when you were doing that at Cancer Research UK and what some of the benefits were?
Absolutely. So yeah, as John mentioned, Philanthropy Impact does offer some training, and I'm involved with this training. And I was really excited when John first asked if I wanted to, sort of help deliver this training with Philanthropy Impact, because I really believe that I could see, sort of in the work that I was doing at Cancer Research UK, and as I say, just drawing on my, sort of previous experience also from the advisor perspective, how important it was for high value fundraisers just to be able to, sort of work in a very sort of collegial way as peers with professional advisors, and very much that they could, sort of be doing this ultimately because you have the same sort of clients. You're both serving high value audiences. And really then it was around, for me, sort of just really ensuring that, sort of you making sure that you're both working as relationship managers, you're helping your clients to achieve their philanthropic goals. That's ultimately what you're trying to do together. And really, sort of just drawing on from what Glenn was saying, how you can support the professional advisors is really helping them understand a little bit more about, sort of how it is to interact with a charity, what can their clients expect, sort of really helping them understand a little bit more of that sort of process. And likewise with your clients, your supporters, it's really helping them, also understand what they can expect from the whole process, and really supporting them along the way, and not just, I think, ultimately trying to make a sale. It's about taking a step back and really listening to them, understanding what they're trying to achieve, and doing that the best way that you can, and using a network approach to do that. So that's why it's really important about building those relationships, working together with the professional advisors who are going to be delivering on some of the more sort of technical aspects of that work.
So when you were doing that, that was pretty radical. Can you give an example of how it was really effective with one of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So someone that I work quite closely with had a really, specific idea about what she wanted to achieve. When she was working with us and before committing to making a donation, she did quite a lot of work. She called it her due diligence on the organization. And it was just really, sort of giving her as much information as she needed, from Cancer Research UK at that stage, to help her do her due diligence, and asking as many questions to just sort of refine, where she was really, sort of passionate, really understanding, what her objectives and motivations were, and then also understanding where she was, sort of at her stage of her life, and how then we could sort of support her in the best possible way, and also helping her, I guess, then ultimately give in a way that was going to work best for her. And just through really, sort of taking my time with her and working with her in that way, she also was, sort of interested to work with professional advisors who could help her achieve that objective. So I introduced her to a couple of different professionals, and then she made a choice with who she wanted to obviously work with at that stage to help her achieve what she was looking to do.
And did she increase her giving?
She did, yep. So the relationship was an ongoing one, and yeah, absolutely. She, not only her giving, but her overall engagement with the organization. And I think that's important too, is because of that, real relationship that we built. It wasn't just about her giving financially to the organization. She had, sort of time. She had skills that she could also, sort of help support the organization with. So it was really about that overall engagement with her.
So Glenn, Sianne's talking about major donor fundraisers supporting their clients and effect on their donor journey and working with professional advisors. But from a professional advisor perspective, should all professional advisors, whether they're private banks, legal, wealth advisors, et cetera, should they be playing a role in supporting their clients on their donor and social impact investment journey?
Where appropriate, the answer is most definitely yes, I would say. I think the question of support is a very interesting one, isn't it? The short answer is a professional advisor actually has a lot of support that they can give, although they may not necessarily realise it. I mean, if you let me, John, if I sort of think this through with us for a second or two, I can give us a few examples. A professional advisor can, as already been said, can provide connections and connectivity, which in turn can obviously lead to donor opportunities, for instance, but more generally provide contacts and networks that can strengthen and enhance a donor journey, providing further validation, for instance, on that journey. But more than this, a professional advisor can provide another view of life. This could be around corporate rigor or the application of that, or it could be institutional processes, for instance. But this other view of life can be a great support to donors in broadening their horizons and seeing what they are attempting to do and achieve from another point of view. That's very important, I would suggest. It's very healthy, that ability to see one's purpose or mission from another point of view. And then added to that, of course, a professional advisor should be able to, well, definitely if they're a professional advisor, should be able to give access to specialist knowledge. And again, this is a sort of a hidden gem, but almost sort of staring us in the face. This is where things can become very creative in assisting clients and those seeking donors to access and leverage that knowledge, whatever it might be. But the fact is that the associated intellectual prism, if you want to call it that, around specialist knowledge that a professional will have, can in some way either open a new door, enhance a way of thinking, or provide intellectual capital. And I think those are some of the sort of key areas of support.
Do you have to depend upon other people? Because we found in our research there's 23 distinct services that someone needs on their donor journey, for example. And so no professional advisor will have expertise in all of them, but should have some understanding of what they are. So do you have to use other people sometimes in your practice?
You do, absolutely. So yes. So the ability is to the ability to provide a sort of overall collaborative approach where you are pulling in different specialists for specific areas, but the overall journey is still maintained, is obviously essential. Otherwise, you can find yourself down all manner of rabbit holes and misdirections and missteps, of course. Yes.
It's interesting because in those conversations I mentioned where we have wealthy people in the same room, many of them talk about the fact that when they first started off on their journey, they failed, and it was quite discouraging. And what we're finding, and I don't know if you're finding the same thing, but the failure rate sort of drops with their advisors' help. And our research showed also that if their advisors support them on their donor journey, they tend to give 17 times more a year, so between 19,000 and 335,000. So are you finding that as well then?
Definitely. So I think there is a shift in that, isn't there? There's an increase, I think, in productivity and more favourable outcomes. I think it's also interesting, John, if I might, just sort of, if we just think also why that is and why we're almost having this conversation now in sort of 2022 rather than say, let's say 30 years ago. I mean, the picture then would be very different if we were talking about professional advisors. And I know this is one of my sort of key areas I always like to discuss, but it has a lot to do, that shift for the better has a lot to do with the unraveling of social emotional intelligence. Just very quickly on that, when we think about it, we now live in a world that is so much more empathetic. Now, I admit there's still some way to go, of course, I do admit that. But one of the impulses here is if you think back to the end of, let's say, the 20th century, you know, the dominant mindset in the West, at least, was one of thinking that we've mastered all of our vulnerabilities and that there was very little that could be overcome. And now if we forward wind to where we are now in 2022, it's not the case that we're invulnerable, quite the opposite. Rather, we are so much more aware of how vulnerable we actually all are and can become. And my point here, the reason I mention this is professional advisors generally are very switched on to that, or they should be, but typically they are. And that impulse is embedded deeply, I think, in the complexity of the work that they carry out for their clients and the help that they can give. So there's a lot going on here, I think, as a background, as a context, which I think we should be mindful of.
Interesting. What we're finding, even in conversations I've had just in the last day or so, is a lot of young people, young wealthy people, so next gen, Gen Z, whatever, are really frustrated with their advisors because they want to, in fact, live their values and motivations, etc. And they want to do that either through philanthropy and or impact investing. Are you finding there's kind of pressure coming from clients to do this as well, not just from advisors?
No, definitely. So I think if you look at the sort of difference between the demographics in terms of generational, the generations, that there are differences, definitely. I mean, their intentions might be the same. So it may well be that, you know, I want to help tackle climate change, or I want to help tackle the education gap, whatever it might be. But broadly speaking, the sort of the methodology and approach between the generations is different. I mean, if just very quickly, if you sort of think about that, let's take one approach. Is it going to be sort of, you know, eating less meat and going vegan, for instance? You know, it's likely that people who are teenagers or in their 20s are much more open to considering becoming vegans, for instance, than those demographically over 60 years of age. So, I mean, if even more endemic than that, if you look at Generation Alpha, for instance, so, you know, those under 10-year-olds who live among us, this is already a generation that are developing very strong views against killing animals to eat them, for instance. And so you've got a whole generation of eco-warriors on its way. But my point is their approach will likely be very different from historical approaches, even from the approaches that you've just mentioned, John, in the clients that you're talking to. So yes, there are differences, definitely.
That sort of leads us nicely into Jessica, and in terms of what your mission is. But I don't think empathy is an issue for charity so much. But what you're looking at is a shift in the culture and behavior of major donor fundraisers. So what makes a major donor fundraiser a good advisor, good professional advisor? Why become a partner with professional advisors from your perspective?
Well, actually, John, I think, what Glenn said about empathy is absolutely crucial. I think, to be a good major donor fundraiser and to be a good advisor, you have to have a strong ability to empathize. And first and foremost, I guess part of that is being a good listener as well. So, the ability to listen and take feedback is really crucial in our roles as major donor fundraisers. And I remember actually going to a training session quite a few years ago where the trainers suggested that a client meeting, when the client spoke 80% of the time and you spoke the remaining 20, was a success. And, I think that's really good advice. In order to advise, you need to start by listening, and you need to start by asking questions, which can then help you tailor your relationship with the client so it's bespoke and so that it fulfills their needs and priorities. I think as well, to be a good sort of major donor fundraiser / advisor, you have to have a good knowledge of not only your area of specialism, which I guess goes without saying, but also how that fits into global frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals, or like the concept of One Health, or the sort of ESG framework, so that you can make your work relevant to other people and put it in context for them as well. And in terms of working with professional advisors and what makes a major donor fundraiser a good partner, I think the ability to also, and the desire to connect people is really important. And in the same vein, sort of the willingness to go the extra mile to help someone, even if there's nothing in it for you. So I kind of believe in sort of professional karma, I guess, business karma. I guess most things in life, it's all swings and roundabouts. And also having your own preset or sort of predefined standards and values that you abide by is also important, because in our business, personal credibility builds trust. And if, for example, if you say you're going to do something, do it, and do it on time. Always be exceptionally respectful of other people's time too, because we know how flat out, everyone is these days, perhaps particularly professional advisors. So yeah, they're just some of the ways in which I think it's a major donor fundraiser can be a good advisor and a good partner to advisors.
So you would be, in effect, a philanthropy advisor. Does that mean you put your clients' needs first?
I think you have to. I think that's really the only option if you're going to sort of attract investment. There's absolutely no point in trying to convince someone that they should invest in something they have no interest in, or that doesn't align with their values or priorities, or sustain their own personal sustainable development desires. So I think that, yes, you have to kind of put or really listen and put the needs of your clients first. Yeah.
What happens then if they're not interested in what you're doing and what your organization's doing? What do you do in that case then?
I absolutely think that you have to know when to walk away. That I'd say that first and foremost. It's not going to, Brooke's work is not going to be of interest to everyone. But going back to that sort of business karma as well, I think, going out your way to help people, even, as I said, even if there's nothing in it for you, if there's something you can do for someone else, then even if that person might not directly wish to support Brooke or Brooke's outcomes, often there are sort of benefits in the longer term just by supporting someone else's needs.
So you don't totally walk away, you help them find a way to meet their values and live their values?
Yeah, 100%. So, in recent years, I guess the way we've worked with professional advisors has evolved quite a lot. Originally we set out to showcase Brooke's work to targeted advisors by way of delivering a presentation. so that our work was then on their radar, and that was really the overriding aim. And yes, we had some successes and some positive outcomes, but we've since realized that a much more kind of organic, bespoke way of working is far more effective. And that might mean actually, you know, working with the professional advisor to pinpoint very specific ways in which they might like to assist you with their skills and expertise, things that they might not realize that they're even able to do, but that would give them, you know, huge pride in being able to work in that way. So yeah, I think that sometimes you just have to walk away. Other times it is about being creative. Yeah.
Okay. Sianne, where do you start to work with advisors? Because we know that advisors sort of hesitate quite a bit around being around fundraisers. And so where do you start to build up those relationships?
Yeah, so I think, you know, just saying going back to one of the points that Jessica raised was, it's about you understanding how your organization fits into a much wider universe. And I think if you start from there, it's about, you know, really sort of looking at how you can tap into that wider universe and actually learn about it from a starting point. So, you know, sort of learning, and one way of learning is obviously, you know, sort of attending different types of sessions. Obviously, Philanthropy Impact is a good place to start. And Glenn will probably share, I'm sure Charles Stanley do lots of great events also where they're on charity law or different aspects that would be really interesting for fundraisers also to attend. So that's a good way to start building your network, plus understanding that wider universe. So I think it's really from growing there with, you know, first of all, building out your own knowledge. And then in that way, you're also, you know, building out your network and really sort of scaling it from that. So that would be my advice, is starting in that way and building out your relationships, and also within your organization, also looking at where you already have those connections with professional advisors, because you will, through either your supporters or through some of your other stakeholders that you're already working with. You know, if you've got a legacies team, if you've got a corporate partnerships team, you're likely to already be working with some sorts of professional advisors too.
Okay, thank you. So Glenn, now that you know, we've had these discussions around the role of professional advisors, is this something that you might look at as a resource to help you and help your clients on their donor journey?
Well, absolutely, yes. I think that is the case. I mean, there are always at least two sides to every story, aren't there? And generally, you know, if we're being honest, professional advisors don't tend to always involve philanthropy advisors with their clients or keep them around. And there's all sorts of reasons for that, and maybe it's not a particularly well-trodden path. But I think one key area that high value donor fundraisers can bring to clients is almost certainly an awareness and a great deal of insight, and that's incredibly valuable. And I think demonstrating that to clients is essential and crucial. I mean, awareness and experience I'm talking about in terms of unlocking and driving forward. And part of the reason I suppose their contribution would be and is so important is because we should remember that there's still a lot of work to be done on how our sort of growing awareness of and the ability to access pots of wealth, for instance, where they exist, is correlated with the impact economy. So where that shift across the scale towards impact investing and then obviously onto philanthropy is still an evolving process in the mindset of many, if not most clients, really. So in other words, what I'm saying, I definitely agree that this sort of narrow bridge between sort of finance first and impact first is a delicate balancing act, and that's where high value major donor fundraisers have a big part to play, definitely in the educative part of that.
It's interesting because, of course, the ideal for a professional advisor is to be the first call for clients. And the same thing applied in Sianne's example. Jessica, I noticed we only have 2 minutes left and Sophia's come on. And now I know what it feels like to have someone come on in the middle of a conversation that I'd like to keep going for quite a while. But Jessica, 3 seconds. First call, there are other issues though internally, because it means a change in the KPIs and the culture and behavior within organizations' expectations. Can you give us 30 seconds about what that is and how you deal with it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know, all too often there's a pressure just to bring the money in, and you know, there's a short-termist kind of attitude. And that has to change if you're going to be able to work with not only professional advisors successfully, but obviously, you know, major donor fundraising. We know it takes a minimum of sort of 18 months to develop a really meaningful relationship with someone where they are deeply engaged in your cause and give in a meaningful way. So absolutely changing KPIs around, you know, opportunities and networking and working with professional advisors in a way that is of mutual benefit is very important, I think.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Jessica, Sianne, and Glenn. Over to you, Sophia.
John, are you happy for us, even though we've done the 30 minutes, to do a 30 seconds of wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, we always ask for what's the takeaway you'd like people to take from this session today? I'm going to start with Sianne on this one, as she's our training facilitator.
I think it's all about those long-term sustainable relationships and really understanding needs.
Thank you. And Jessica?
I think it's a pretty tough time for major donor fundraisers, but I do think it's exciting. I think that, you know, the pandemic, as we all know, has shaken things up and changed perceptions, and it's something we can capitalize on. And it's something whereby charities and professional advisors can really work together to explore creative ways of increasing investment and adding value to the client's investment or financial journey, I guess. Yeah.
And over to you, Glenn.
Yeah, well, I mean, just almost sort of encapsulating what's just been said, really. But in terms, I think the key takeaway is never underestimate sort of connections and connectivity. I think the future is really bright when you sort of go down those routes, because you can unlock so much. All kinds of wisdom and sort of know-how does exist out there, probably in the people that you already know. And so driving that forward, I think, is to be encouraged.
Thank you. And final word to you, John.
We have three really excellent examples of people who have built relationships and who have done it to the benefit of their organizations and, more importantly, to the benefit of their clients and their clients' families. So thank you for leading the way to all three of you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. That was just at the end, then my daughter's come in. So sorry. It's like the final end to this Monday that I've had a nightmare. But that was a brilliant session, and I really loved the idea of the creativity that fundraisers can bring to the donor journey, because that's certainly something that I felt was really important when I was a major donor fundraiser, was how I can make this fun for the donors. So thank you for that. And we've shared a link to the training in the chat, but if you want to know more about that, please do get in touch with me. I'm happy to talk through what we do and why we do it and how it can be of benefit to you. And also the announcements I had to make. We've got Walking Issues next week as normal, but also our magazine part 2, which is To Measure or To Not Measure, is out today, I think, or at least you should be able to find it on our website. But thank you very much, all of you today, and apologies again for my slightly distracted behaviour, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.